Welcome everyone to our webinar today on avoiding the traps of frauds and scams. I'm so pleased to partner with the Ontario Securities Commission and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre for today's webinar on an important issue that we know has been increasing to vulnerable seniors and individuals in our communities because of the fraudsters' tactics of way they try to scam us out of our funds and money. So we're hoping today that you'll learn a lot of new tips and what about new scams that are out there, so you'll be aware of the warning signs if they do come to your attention. So we are pleased that we have our ASL interpreters with us today, and I'll be giving a little bit more direction, but they will be on screen the whole time today. Just as before we begin, I'd like to provide our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional territory of a number of First Nations and acknowledge their stewardship of this land throughout the ages. We seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one that is based in honor and deep respect. So just a few housekeeping items to go through. Everybody will be muted during the presentation except for our speakers. The speakers will be visible when they're speaking, and when we do the question and answer period for the speakers, they'll also both be available at the end and also at the end of their presentations when we can do question and answers. As I mentioned, we have our ASL interpreters with us today. You can make the visuals of those images larger on your screen by pulling these, there's a tab between the images and the PowerPoint. You can move that to the left to make it larger, or in your gallery view, you can make it, you can change the view settings as a presenter, whatever suits you, or you can pin your speakers as well. So you can also post information or chat with people in the chat box. We encourage you to do that. If you have a specific question for the speakers during the webinar, just a reminder to put that in the Q&A box. We want to make sure that we don't miss your questions. So if you can put that in the question and answer box, and if you accidentally put it in the chat, we might remind you just to post it there. And we want to make sure that we don't miss your question. As I mentioned, we are recording today's webinar. It will be posted on our website within the next day, and it will be under archived webinars. You will see the recording as well as the copy of the PowerPoint and PDF that you can download. And we also appreciate your feedback after the webinar to do a short survey just to give us some suggestions and what you thought of the presentation and any ideas for future webinars. And we do respect your privacy and confidentiality. We know that in many of these webinars that we provide, there may be personal circumstances or issues that you wish to address. We take those very seriously, and we would encourage you to reach out to us directly about a personal situation so we can assist you. This is a public forum, so we do want to respect your privacy in regards to that. If you wanted to directly get feedback from a speaker, we can put you in touch with that person as well. So again, just as a privacy, if we can encourage you to ask general questions and circumstances, but not maybe identifying certain specifics. Just as I indicated, this is a public forum. It will be available on our website. So just being conscious of that. And just for those who have joined us for the first time, if you're not familiar with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, our mission is to make sure seniors are free from abuse and have a strong voice and feel respected. And we achieve that through raising awareness, delivering education, such as the sessions today, doing outreach with our community partners to assist in that service coordination and advocacy to ensure the rights of seniors are protected, as well as working towards the prevention of elder abuse, not only within Ontario, but across Canada and with our partners to achieve this. We are working to implement or have been implementing Ontario's strategy to combat elder abuse since 2003, which is funded through the Ontario Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. The pillars for this strategy include public education awareness, training for staff, and the coordination of services. And those pillars haven't changed since the strategy started in 2003. However, the work that we do underneath those pillars has expanded tremendously as the growth of the organization and people get informed and educated about the issue. We have expanded the amount of work that we do, not only within our organization, but also with the partners that we work with to make sure that we meet the needs of seniors in our communities and have the services to support them. And before we begin, I do acknowledge today is International Women's Day. So our organization had put out some promotion on this as well on our social media, but just want to highlight the fact that we do need to celebrate International Women's Day and work towards our forging equality and recognize the contributions that all women, including older women who have contributed to making our country what it is today. So just want to give some recognition to this important day that many people are probably involved with, either formally or informally today. And reach out to older woman, grandmother, mother in your family or in your circle, just to do that recognition. I think it's such important that we value their contributions and in our lives. And also, in terms of looking at the work that we're doing this month, we've been doing webinars in recognition for Fraud Prevention Month, which is one of the reasons we've held this webinar today during March and working with our partners to do so. So you'll notice that on social media and newspapers, there's been a lot of articles and mention of fraud prevention. So I encourage you to look at the government websites, the Canadian fraud sites. There are some links at the back end of this presentation that provide you some further guidance. There's information on our websites and our newsletters promoting information around this fraud prevention, and our speakers will give more detail about that. So it gives me great honor to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker I'd like to introduce is Jeff Horncastle. He's an acting supervisor with the Fraud Prevention and Intake Unit at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. And Jeff has worked there for nearly 5 years. So welcome, Jeff. And along with Jeff, we have Christine Allam, who is a senior advisor, investment engagement and stakeholder partnership. And she works in the investor's office at the Ontario Securities Commission. And Chris has worked, hopefully my internet's not unstable. Christine has worked with community groups and organizations to deliver many of these education presentations on fraud prevention. Her financial expertise include adult training, resource development, and community outreach. And she has, prior to joining the Ontario Securities Commission, she worked at the Toronto Stock Exchange. So Chris and I have done many webinars together. So nice to have Chris back again to share her wealth of experience with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and she will start her presentation from the investment perspective for frauds and scams. Chris?
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction, Rayanne. So I'm just going to share my screen right now, and hopefully you can all see that. Wonderful. So as Rayanne mentioned, I work for the Ontario Securities Commission. If you're not familiar with our organization, we're a government agency, and we're responsible for regulating the capital markets in the province. So what does that mean? It means that we set the rules and policies and enforce those rules and policies for the people that work in the investment industry. And that would apply to the people that provide investment advice, the people that investments, and the people that actually issue those investments. A key part of our mandate is to provide protection to investors. And one of the best ways to provide protection is to ensure that people have access to good information. So actually, I work within the investor office of the OSC, and within the investor office, there's an education and outreach team, and I'm part of that team. So outreach is my responsibility, where I actually share a lot of information with you. Normally, I would deliver this in person, but COVID-19 has changed that, so we're doing a lot virtually. But not only do I share information, I also get information from you. It's a nice two-way street. Your comments, your questions are really important to us because that can help us on the education side. It can help us develop the resources and tools that you need. It can also help us on the policy side because I work in my branch. We also have a policy team. And of course, it can also help us because we have a research team, because we're always interested in what are some of those barriers that Canadians face with making good financial decisions. So as a regulator, we provide protection, outreach being one of them. We also have a wonderful website called GetSmarterBotMoney.ca, and I will talk about that a little bit later in my presentation. But what are some of those tools under our belt? Because how do we deter people from doing harm within the industry? So I have several tools under our belt. We have a whistleblower program. So if you know someone's not following the rules, you can certainly contact us. We have no contest settlements. We have disruption letters. If we know somebody's out there and they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing, we can do disruption letters. We also have sanctions. So we can impose monetary penalties for each breach of the Securities Act. And I believe right now it's $1 million per breach of the Act. We can also ban someone from working in the industry temporarily, or we can ban them from life so that, that really impacts their career. And then we also issue investor warnings. And these investor warnings, you'll see are the most latest. I think they're from the last couple of weeks. And these are companies that are actually out there offering their services, but they're not registered to do business in Ontario. So these are just some of the ways that we're trying to, provide protection. And we're also, letting you know what's happening so that you can also protect yourself. So this part of the presentation, I'm going to really focus on what are some of those investment frauds that are happening. My colleague, partner in crime that you'll hear from later on, Jeff from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, will also talk about other types of frauds that are happening. So in investment fraud, we know that 1 in 25 Canadians have reported being a victim of investment fraud. But you know what else we know? That only 1 of 3 Canadians who have ever been approached to participate in a fraudulent opportunity will ever report it. Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, based on the fact of people that have reported fraud, said that last year, Canadians reported losing $163 million to investment fraud. That's a lot of money. The other thing we know is that fraud is an underreported crime. And people don't like to report it because they tell me, and as they're telling me how they were defrauded, they'll say, well, I don't want to report the fraud because I'm embarrassed. I don't want family and friends to know. I don't want to look stupid. I'm going to tell you right now, anyone can be the victim of fraud. All fraudsters care about is getting access to your money. You know what's really sad? When you've been defrauded, you suffer a financial loss. That can impact your quality of life. But not only is there that financial loss, it can also impact your health, mentally, physically. People who have been victims of fraud are more prone to anxiety, stress. There's all kinds of issues that comes with just being victimized. So we know fraud is devastating on several levels. So how are these fraudsters taking advantage of us? Well, how are they contacting us? And you may have received some of these wonderful emails and been approached by these fraudsters in some of these ways. Sometimes we get these emails and text messages from people that we don't know. Sometimes we're online, we get a message on our social media platform, or those calls that wake you up in the morning. We get those types of calls. Or you belong to a group, you belong to a club, you go to something and you get approached. And then of course, there's mail. You get these things via Canada Post. So different ways that these fraudsters are out there to try and tempt us, to get us to participate in something that really is not in our best interest. So what are some of those investment type frauds out there? First one is pump and dump. And how does it work? You might get approached, a call or an email offering you a wonderful opportunity in some kind of a stock. And what these fraudsters do is they really buy worthless stock, or they already own these worthless stocks. And then they put out very positive news about the company. So then when they contact you, they're promoting this company with very false positive news, trying to get you to buy it, saying, look at what the company's doing. You'll know if you invest in it, the stock price is going to go through the roof and you'll make tons of money. So you should buy it now. And that's what they do. So they pump up the stock, they get people to buy it. And the more people that buy it, the more the price goes up. Now, this fraudster, once he sells all this stock, guess what? He disappears with your money. You're left holding worthless stock. Okay. And that's how a pump and dump works. And, when COVID-19 first came on scene, guess what the fraudsters were doing? They were saying that the stocks they were selling were in companies that were providing a product or service that can help with COVID-19. So they really take advantage of whatever is happening in the current environment to try and get you to participate in their fraudulent opportunity. Then there's affinity fraud. And you may have even come across some of these affinity frauds just by the news reports that you may have heard or read about over the last few years. So what's affinity fraud? Fraudster targets groups of people that share a common identity, maybe the same cultural group, live in the same geographic region, maybe they share a common purpose. You like to play sports, so you're part of a sports club. You like to read books, you're part of a book club. However it works, fraudster targets these groups. They're either a member of the group or they join the group, not because they share the same interest. They join the group solely to gain your trust. Once they gain your trust, guess what they do? They talk about some wonderful opportunity that they have to help you make money. Because it's someone in your group, you're likely to believe them. And they may even cozy up to someone within the group that is more influential or maybe a leader. And if that person participates, then the rest of the group will follow. So once someone participates, the rest of the group follows. Guess what? Fraudster takes your money, disappears, and now you've been the victim of an affinity fraud. Then there's the Ponzi scheme. And you may be even familiar with the Ponzi scheme. So how does the Ponzi scheme work? Well, in a Ponzi scheme, I'm the fraudster. I say to you, interest rates are really low. Don't put your money in the bank. You put your money in the bank, you're not getting anything, right? So I go out and I tell people, give me their money, let me invest it for them. And I'm going to guarantee them high returns, no risk. Well, if you know interest rates are low and somebody's going to promise you or guarantee high returns, no risk, sounds like a really good offer. So you take me up on my offer. So as this Ponzi fraudster, I go around and I recruit people to get them to give me their money. Now, the first group of people I recruited reach out to me and say, Chris, where are those high returns? I've not seen anything. I haven't seen an interest payment. I haven't seen anything. And I said, well, you know what? You're making over 20%. You should leave your money where it is, let it work for you, let it grow. And some people go, oh, that sounds really good. Yeah, leave my money. Some people will say, no, Chris, I want to get my 20% and I want to cash out. And what do I say? Not a problem. So the next thing I do is I go recruit another group of people to give me their money. Then I take some of that money and I share it with those folks that I have said, you can cash out. Here's your interest. Here's your returns. Here's your original principal. And they cash out and they're happy. So in order for this Ponzi scheme to work, I have to keep bringing in new money to feed those people that I've promised a payment. At some point, this wonderful group that I've recruited is going to get too big for me to manage because I'm a fraudster. I'm not going to keep detailed documentation. I'm going to keep everything in my head. So when this group gets too big, too unwieldy, too large for me to manage, guess what? I'm going to walk away. When I walk away, the group collapses, the scheme collapses, and now you've been the victim of a Ponzi scheme. And many times the affinity fraud and the Ponzi scheme, they seem to go together. So a Ponzi scheme, you'll usually see that there's an affinity fraud element to it also. Then we're seeing crypto scams. And this is relatively new. You might have heard about Bitcoins, and they're what we call a cryptocurrency, which falls under crypto assets. And there are new types of cryptocurrencies coming out every day. Every time I read the newspaper, there's something new. And there's knowing that people are interested in these types of crypto assets out there trying to lure you into investing in these types of products. They may say to you, we can help you invest in it. You can take part in something called an initial coin offering, sort of like an initial stock offering, right? Initial product offering. And then they tell you, open an account, put some money in the account, buy crypto assets. They may tell you to buy these assets through an unregistered trading platform, or you follow them and you buy these and you give them access to your investment account. And guess what? There's no money in there. You can't get the money. So different ways that the fraudsters right now are trying to con people into participating in these crypto scams. Years ago, there's the news Quadriga CX. OSC did an investigative report on that scheme, and we actually put out a report on it. And this involved crypto assets. Interested in you can certainly go on our website and check. You could be approached to be re-victimized, participate in what we call a repeat scam. And people have said to me, if I've been the victim of a fraud, there is no way you're going to get me to participate a second time. Well, I'm a fraudster. And as a fraudster, I'm very creative. If I've defrauded you, I have your names and I have your contact information. I can't come back and defraud you a second time, but I can reach out to my fellow fraudster. And let's say my fellow fraudster is Jeff. So I contact Jeff. Jeff has a list of people that he's defrauded and he can't go back and defraud a second time. So what do? We exchange list. Or maybe I tell Jeff, buy my list from me. It's a very good list. However it works, your names have now been passed on to this new fraudster. And what does Jeff do? Contacts you, tells you, hey, I understand you've been the victim of a fraud. Now we can help you get your money back for a small fee. Well, if you've lost money, and maybe you didn't tell family and friends that you've lost all this money, so you're really desperate to get it back, you might be tempted to take Jeff up on his offer. Or another way, in an investment fraud, you've lost all this money and the fraudster says to you, if you just invest a few more $1,000s, you will make back your original investment and more. And it happens. I've been doing this for a number of years now, and people tell me how they've been approached. And sometimes I hear these stories about how they can become a repeat victim. So we know that fraudsters are out there trying to get your money a second time. And there are other types of frauds out there: foreign exchange, offshore investing, exempt securities. Then there are these imposter scams. People have, posing or pretending to work for a well-known financial company selling products that this company doesn't offer, or they're saying they have certain accreditations. And some of you may have even, gone online and seen these phony corporate websites. So different ways that these fraudsters are trying to get us to participate and to, take some of our money. But what's really important is the warning signs. How would you know that something's fraudulent? Hey, have I got a deal for you? But you must act now. High pressure sales tactics. We know they work. So fraudsters are doing the same. They apply these high pressure sales tactics to get you to participate, take part in that opportunity right away. Somebody does that to you, says, I've got a deal for you, but you have to act right now. What do? Walk away. Take a step back from that opportunity Think about the opportunity, because you want to have time to think about it. You don't want to rush into something that may not be such a good opportunity. Another warning sign is these phone calls, emails, and texts. Just ask yourself this question. Someone that you don't know approaches you and offers you a wonderful opportunity. You should be asking yourself this question. I don't know them. They don't know me. Why are they offering me this opportunity? How do they benefit? What's in it for them? So when you get these types of phone calls and emails and text messages, what should you be doing? Hang up, delete, ignore them. Another warning sign is free incentives. I love getting free stuff. I don't know too many people that don't. But just be careful. If someone's offering you something for free, likely they want something in return. Then there's these promises of high or guaranteed returns with little to no risk. If you invest, the riskier the investment, there's a possibility you could make higher returns. But remember, it's a riskier the investment. So not only could you possibly make higher returns, you could possibly lose everything. So someone promising you high or guaranteed returns, just be very careful, because guaranteed returns with no risk doesn't work when you're investing. If that opportunity sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Another one is encourage to recruit family and friends. If I say to you, I have a wonderful investment opportunity for you, and that opportunity is going to help, meet your goals. And then after that, I say, do you have family and friends that might want to participate in this? Is this opportunity really going to meet your goals, or am I trying to get as many people as possible to participate in something that may not be such a good opportunity? Another warning sign of fraud is dealing with someone that's not registered. I work for a regulator in the investment industry. Anyone wanting to provide investment advice, sell you investments, must be registered with the Securities Commission. So if it's related to investing, you want to make sure that you are dealing with someone that is registered. Another warning sign of fraud is suggest falsifying financial information. It's exactly as it sounds. And somebody said, well, I would never do that. Think back to my Affinity Fraud. You're part of this wonderful group. You get together because you share a common purpose. If I'm a member of that group, and I say to you, I got this great opportunity. You can make oodles of money if you just invest $5,000. Some people might say, great, they can participate. And some say to me, Chris, I don't have that money, but I really would like to participate. And you know what I say to them? Don't worry, you can participate. All you need to do is make a leveraged investment, one where you borrow the money to invest. I will help you fill out the paperwork. So I'm a fraudster, right? And as we're filling out the paperwork, I said, oh, don't put down that you don't own your condo, that you rent it. Put down that you own it and put down this amount of dollars. I'm the fraudster. I want you to get that loan, right? What have I just done? I've advised you to falsify financial information on a loan application. I'm not going to give you good advice. So somebody not giving you good advice likely is not someone you should be doing business with. Another warning sign of fraud is tax avoidance strategy. I don't know anyone that says, yay, I want to pay taxes. However, we pay taxes for certain services. And there are programs and plans out there that can help us minimize the amount of taxes we pay, that can help us be more tax efficient. But there are no plans out there to help us avoid paying taxes. So just be careful if someone says to you, we can help you avoid paying taxes. You really don't want to get in trouble with CRA. And then the very last warning sign is acting on inside information or hot scoop. I say to you, I've got this hot scoop, hot tip by this company. Am I sharing that information with you? Illegal. You're acting on that information? Also illegal. So just be very careful when somebody says that they have a hot tip or hot scoop. So what do we want you to do? We want you to protect yourself from investment fraud. So what can you do? Be skeptical of these unsolicited opportunities. Somebody you don't know comes up to you with these wonderful opportunities, ignore it. Don't click on any links or attachments that they may provide. Take the time you need to make an informed decision. Don't let anyone pressure you into doing something right away. Something you're interested in. Maybe you want to get a second opinion from someone who's qualified, like a registered advisor, a lawyer, or an accountant. Be wary of these promises of high returns with little to no risk. Okay. When you invest, the riskier the investment, maybe there's a possibility of higher returns, but you could also lose everything. And always, always do a background check. And how would you do a background check? You want to check registration of that person because you want to ensure that that person has the qualifications to provide you with the services and products that they are offering. And two ways to check registration: you can contact the OSC. We have a toll-free number, 1-877-785-1555, or you can go online if you're comfortable online and visit checkbeforeyouinvest.ca, and that takes you to a national database where you can check registration of any individual across Canada. Okay, so that's how you can protect yourself. The other thing you can do is, if you have an investment account, you work with an advisor, make sure that you communicate regularly with your advisor. You keep your know your client form up to date, so they're up to date with what's happening in your life. One of the other things you can also do is add a trusted contact person to your file. We know that making financial decisions at any age is not easy. But as we age, those decisions become even more complex. But we're also aging. And when we age, we are faced with other challenges. We're faced with health challenges. It could be mental challenges. We're also faced with the possibility of financial exploitation. So one of the things we're suggesting is that people add a trusted contact person to their file. This person is like an emergency contact. If the advisor you're working with, suspects maybe financial exploitation, they can reach out to this trusted contact person for more information to find out what's going on, because they suspect that something's wrong. Okay, so just another way to protect yourself. Now, what do you do if you suspect fraud? Report it. By reporting it, you may prevent someone else from becoming the victim of a fraud. Who can you report fraud to? You can report it to us, Ontario Securities Commission. We have a toll-free number, 1-877-785-1555. You can also email us, inquiries@osc.gov.on.ca. Our colleagues from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, another place that you can report fraud to, and they have a toll-free number, 1-888-495-8501, or you can report it to your local police. What's really important is reporting it. And I'm just going to take a couple more minutes to tell you where else you can get more information. I mentioned our website, GetSmarterBotMoney.ca. Great website, lots of information and tools to help you make decisions about your finances. Today's presentation is all on fraud prevention, so we have information on how to protect yourself from fraud. We have a fraud checklist. You can certainly go on there and get information. We also have a tool called a scam spotter, so that you can, figure out, how to recognize a scam. We have information on elder abuse, financial elder abuse. We know that many people are getting their financial affairs in order. We have something called personal information inventory form. And this is a form you print out. You put down, all those important documents, all those professionals you deal with, medical professionals, legal professionals, your accountant. You would put down all those social media accounts and all those passwords. So this is something that if you weren't able to share this information with someone, that information was all documented, right? So you document everything, you put it in a safe spot, and you just tell that person you trust where to get this information. So lots of different tools on our website to help you. I talked a little bit about crypto assets. If this is something that you're very interested in, I would certainly recommend that you go on our website. We have lots of information on different investment products. but certainly crypto assets, it's what everyone's interested on right now. So you can certainly go online and look at that. We also have a page on the website called investingquestions.ca. And this is a page where, sometimes people will email us, they ask us a question, and of course we'll respond. But if someone's asking that question, likely somebody else is thinking that same question and would be interested in the answer. So this is just another resource, another place for you where you can get more answers to some of those questions you may be thinking about, because somebody's already reached out to us and asked that question. And then lastly, you can sign up for e-newsletter, investor news. You just go on our website, GetSmarterBotMoney.ca, to get that information. We also have, different social media feeds. We have an Instagram account, we have a Twitter feed, we have a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel. Okay, so lots of information and lots of places where you can stay connected and where you can get more information. All else fails, you're not sure, you can always call us at the OSC, our toll-free number, which I keep repeating, 1-877-785-1555, and our website, GetSmarterBotMoney.ca. And if you're interested in some of those enforcement cases, or you want to learn more about the OSC, you can certainly go on our corporate website, osc.ca. So this now concludes the end of my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, Rayanne, and then at the end of the presentation, I'll be around to try and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. That was excellent. So many different things to think about when we're thinking about investments, scams, and some good prevention tips. There's always new scams coming out all the time. So the website and resources that were provided by Chris, I would encourage you to go to the website. It does have a number of resources. They have a newsletter also called Investor News. I know that I get it, and it has a lot of good tips. I know for Prevention Month, we put some information on our blog this past week just to inform people about cryptocurrency frauds and stuff. So thank you again, Chris, for sharing that. I'd like to turn it over to Jeff now from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, who is going to do his presentation on the different frauds from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. Jeff.
Thank you, Rayanne, for the introduction, and excellent presentation, Chris. A lot of good information. So as mentioned by Rayanne, my name is Jeff Horncastle. I have been with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, more specifically the Fraud Prevention and Intake Unit, for nearly 5 years, and I'm an acting supervisor with the Fraud Prevention and Intake Unit. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here quickly. So the title of my presentation today is Fraud Prevention 2022. Show me the fraud. And during the presentation, I will be telling you about the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. What is mass marketing fraud? So we'll go through, the definition of mass marketing fraud, what tools the fraudsters use, top solicitation methods, the payment methods that they're frequently using, top reported frauds, impact fraud, and we'll tell you how to report and how to protect yourself. So the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is a joint forces operation led by the RCMP in partnership with the OPP and Competition Bureau. Day-to-day operations are led by the RCMP, and the CAFC is located in North Bay, Ontario. CAFC is Canada's largest central repository for data, intelligence, and resource material as it relates to fraud. So we do partner up with various law enforcement around Canada. We partner up with various government agencies, provincial agencies. We support law enforcement and strengthen partnerships between the private and public sector to aim at maintaining Canada's strong economic integrity. So the first unit, which is a unit that I'm a part of, is a fraud prevention and intake unit. So what we do is we accept reports by telephone and online. We input the information into the CFC database and publish public-facing fraud prevention messaging. We feature, this is FPIU for short, features an inbound call center and online fraud reporting system, which can be found at antifraudcenter.ca. Call center operators are fraud specialists who validate online reports, answer inbound calls from victims, or even if it's just an attempt, it's important to report either way. And they provide education, support, and appropriate referrals. Reports are referred based on a few different factors. If they're high risk, if it's over $10,000 that a victim has lost, if there is cash in the mail that may be able to be intercepted, or if we see a new twist. So we like to promote two different campaigns. The first one is Take 5, which kind of speaks for itself with any kind of scam we're seeing. Always important to, if you're getting an email or a phone call or a message on social media, or if you're doing some kind of online shopping and you're looking for a website, always take 5 or take 2 days if you have to. It just means that always take the time, step back and think about what you're doing, analyze everything, do some research, and you'll in many cases you'll save yourself from potentially being a victim to any kind of scam. The second campaign is Tell 2. So this is based on the fact that if one person tells 2 people about a scam they've encountered, even an attempted fraud, and those 2 people tell another 2 people, that can multiply extremely quickly, and it could potentially reach millions of people. So that kind of gives you an idea of the impact that social media can have. So if you share, let's say, a post, the fraud prevention post on your Facebook page, it can make a big difference, right? It might stop the next person from being a victim to a scam. So the second unit is the senior support unit. They are, I think, a little bit less than 60 volunteers now due to COVID, but this unit is strictly volunteers that do callbacks to senior victims. These volunteers can relate to personal experiences. They may have been victims to scams in the past, and they can offer that support to fellow senior victims. They can provide strength to victims, emotional and moral support, as mentioned, sensitive to the needs of seniors. They can contact these victims as much as possible. They educate and re-educate seniors on top of the education that the fraud prevention and intake unit have provided. And they also send out mail information packages to victims, which are very, very helpful in educating and other frauds as well. So this unit kind of makes the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre a little unique from anything else, where we have this unit of volunteers and they reach out directly to our seniors. The third unit at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is the Operational and Support Unit. The OSU, for short, is a recognized intelligence unit made up of analysts and intel researchers and profilers. So they work closely with law enforcement agencies, regulatory bodies in Canada and the US, private corporations. They educate law enforcement and our private sector partners, provide statistics and investigative packages, either initiated by the CFC or to fulfill external requests. So basically, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the disruption programs as well. So if there's a fraudulent email address or website, it is possible that these get disrupted through our partnerships with private sector companies. So to give you a small idea of the disruption initiatives from 2021, 1,855 telephone numbers were disrupted. 10,773 email addresses were disrupted based on reports from the public. 4,251 merchant accounts were disrupted, and lastly, 18,356 bank accounts were shut down. So moving on to top solicitation methods, as the graphic or the pie chart shows, direct call is still the main tool of the fraudster base. This is based on number of reports. But if you look at internet, social network, and email, if you combine those three, which is essentially cyber, it's actually more than direct call. So those are the two main methods that we're seeing. Excuse me. There is still door-to-door and in-person scams. So, you know, your scam where somebody knocks on your door and they're trying to sell you a new furnace or duct cleaning or something like that. So fraud initiated by telephone. What's important here is to know what tools the fraudsters are using. They use automated dialing, which means that it's completely computer generated. They have the ability to dial so many phone numbers at once. So it's not like, you know, 20 years ago where they had to dial the number to reach the person they're calling. They have computer systems that can dial different combinations of phone numbers in seconds. So what happens is if the person they're calling at picks up the phone, then a live caller will, or a live fraudster, I should call them, will come on the phone once the phone is picked up. Robocalls, very similar, automated systems, but they're, you know, when we think of robocall, we think of that the CRA phone call, or more recently where they claim to be Service Canada or Canada Border Services Agency. So that's a robocall that asks you to dial 1 to speak with a live person. Next on the list is call spoofing. So call spoofing is the scammer's ability to make any phone number show up on your call display. So a couple of years ago, when you know, I referred to that CRA scam, the scammers were actually using the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center's phone number to appear on the person they're calling is call display. So a lesson out of this is never base the legitimacy of a phone call on the number showing on your call display. It's always better to, you know, let the person know that you're going to call them back, and if they're claiming to be your financial institution or a government agency, call them directly. And that way there you'll be sure that you're speaking with the right person. The National Do Not Call list is a good tool for you know, real telemarketing if you don't want to be bothered. But it's important to note that it won't protect you from fraudulent phone calls coming in. So, you know, obviously these criminals don't care about that list, and they'll call you regardless if you're on there or not. Fraud initiated by email or text message. So very similar spoofing I touched on. They can spoof email addresses or phone numbers by text message as well. So, you know, if in the case of an email, you might think it's coming from somebody you know, or a trustworthy organization, a government agency. It's always important to be aware of the spoofing and just, you know, do your due diligence, do some research. There's always a way of going to find the actual email address that it came from. Automation as well. Email compromise, important. One common email we see through email compromises is, you know, you get an email from somebody you know saying that they need a favor. It could be a friend or a family member. They're ill and they need you to go out and buy gift cards. and they assure you that they're going to pay you back. So that's one example of email compromise. How to protect yourself from this. Don't open any messages that claim to be from businesses or organizations with which you do not have an existing relationship. Take the time to analyze the sender's email address by hovering over the sender's name or visible email address. Always review the message for spelling, grammatical errors, unusual language, or branding that isn't quite right. And if you're not sure, then, consult with somebody, a friend or a family member, and maybe they can help you, decide if it's legitimate or not. So fraud initiated online. Search engine optimization refers to looking for information online. A lot of times they'll go to, let's say, Google and do a search. What these fraudsters do is that they pay these search engines to be the first result that comes up. So if you're looking for, let's say, for example, support for your printer, and you type in HP printer support, a lot of times the first up to 5 or 10 could be fraudulent. You always want to make sure that you're going to the actual HP, in this case, website. So by paying the search engine or Google to be the first that shows up, they know that a lot of times what people will do will click on that first result that comes up, and they end up going on a fraudulent website. They call a phone number, and that's how a lot of people fall into the tech support scam. Another variation of fraud initiated online is pop-ups. So I'm going to refer to the tech support scam here again. A lot of times people will get a pop-up that completely freezes their computer and tells them that they're required to call a phone number immediately to take care or wipe off viruses that are infecting the person's device or computer. We see a lot of survey pop-ups as well. So just be mindful of pop-ups. If you're not, if you can't get rid of that pop-up, you can always just shut your computer down by holding the power button, turn it back on. You can also do Control-Alt-Delete to take you to the task manager, and you can close that pop-up that way. But if you're not sure how to do that, hold that power button and shut your computer down, and it should be gone when you open it back up. Fake websites. Creating a website can be very quick and easy, yet they may not be up for long if they're flagged to be fraudulent. Fraudsters create websites for a number of frauds. They're built to offer all kinds of stuff that are, products that are appealing. They can basically make it, it's so easy for fraudsters now to make a website look legitimate. So always do your research and make sure that you're on the legitimate site that you're looking for. Yeah, so I'm going to touch on fake information quickly. Fraudsters will create accounts and website using stolen logos, information, and photos of people and or merchandise. And stolen credit cards. This is more on the business side, where criminals will use stolen credit cards to make purchases on a small business account. And what happens is they get the item shipped to the fraudulent address, and the victim the victim business ends up getting a chargeback, and they're held responsible for that. So main way to protect yourself from being a victim of fraud initiated online is always doing your research. Like I mentioned, sit back, take a few minutes, think about what's going on, and you'll save yourself from falling into any kind of traps. So fraud initiated on social networks. This is probably the quickest growing tool of the fraudster, whether it's an ad on Facebook, whether you're getting a message from somebody you think you're friends with, but their account is compromised. Could be social media bots, fake accounts, or a duplicated account of a friend you have on Facebook. How to protect yourself: don't accept requests from people you don't know. If you don't know them, there's no reason for you to add them to your social media. Be wary of profiles that seem perfect in their photos. That's more related to romance scam, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. If you're getting a message from somebody you have on your friends list and the message seems a little bit out of the ordinary, if they're offering, if they say, oh, I saw your name on a list and you're eligible for a grant, or more recently, if they're offering you an investment opportunity, because we are receiving a lot of reports where victims are getting a message from a family member or a friend on their social media account saying that they have a great investment opportunity, and unfortunately a lot of victims are falling into investment scams that way. So just be careful when you're on social media, and if you keep it just to the people you know, and always be aware that your friend's account could be compromised, and if you see anything out of the ordinary, always be vigilant. So fraud initiated by mail or in person, not seeing as much of this as we used to, especially with door-to-door, because Ontario made a law where it was they're not allowed to go door-to-door now, right? So what a lot of fraudsters are doing now with the old ductwork scam is that they'll call and then set up an appointment and try to get victims to fall into the trap that way. High pressure sales, we still are, I can't say that it's been completely eliminated. Fraudsters will often offer products and services that you do not need. They'll go in and say, you need a new furnace, when in fact your furnace is fine. They get you to sign into a contract. And once you've passed that 14 days or 30 days, depending on the province, then it's extremely difficult to get out of that contract. So if you've ever feel that you're being forced into signing a contract, always do your research, do your due diligence, contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, contact the Consumer Protection Agency in your province, and they can provide a lot of information to help you better decide if you should make that purchase or if you should go into a contract or not. So moving on, the impact of COVID-19 on fraud in Canada. So obviously for different reasons, COVID-19 has affected reports that we're getting with whether it be more Canadians remaining at home, or if they feel a little more lonely than they would have been 2 years ago, or if they're making more purchases online because they're nervous about going out, doing more online banking. There's so many different factors that have come into play with the impact of COVID-19 that it's so important to always do your research and take the necessary steps to prevent yourself from being a victim. Because if you've lost your job and you're going through financial hardship, it's so easy to be vulnerable in these situations. So if you're not sure and you're in any kind of situation, always reach out, contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. We can provide a lot of information and education and prevent you from being a victim. So top frauds of 2021. I apologize, that number for the identity fraud is actually a little over 30,000. So there is a mistake on that slide. So there is over 30,000 reports of identity fraud received at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre in 2021. Number 2 on that list is extortion, with 14,202 reports received. and 3,160 victims with a total loss of 18 million. And third, personal info, number of reports, 7,566, 4,730 victims. So personal info is when, for example, if you're getting a phone call and the main goal of the fraudster calling you is to gain your personal information, social insurance number, your driver's license number, or even in some cases, your date of birth. Fourth is phishing. 7,190 reports received. 1,597 have been victims. So no dollar loss associated with phishing, but it normally does lead to identity fraud. So the main purpose of phishing is to gain access to your bank account or to get your personal information, social insurance number, to give them the ability to potentially apply for credit cards, cell phone accounts, or whatever the case may be. So that is a primary goal of phishing. And number 5, counterfeit merchandise, 5,200 reports and 5,151 victims with a total of 1.1 million lost. So that was top 10 based on number of reports. Top 10 based on dollar loss looks a little different. The number 1 based on dollar loss reported is investment scams with 3,442 reports and 3,077 who have fallen victim, with, as Chris mentioned previously, over 100 or nearly 164 million reported loss to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. Second on our list is romance with 1,928 reports. 1,365 have fallen victim with a total loss of 64.6 million. Number 3, spear phishing. Number 4 is extortion. And to round out the top 5 is merchandise. Okay, so going into our top 10, I do have investment scams listed here, but I think Chris has covered them quite effectively. What I mentioned earlier was that crypto investment scams are obviously the biggest contributor to the large dollar loss report of the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. We would say the number 1 rule is that if generally if you don't know much about something, it's always it's always a good idea not to invest into it, right? Do a lot of research, contact the Ontario Securities Commission, contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and it goes back to taking 5. But in this case, it would more than likely take 5, but it just, a figure of speech where you should always do that research. And if you're getting a weird message from a friend on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, always be a little skeptical if they're investing in or offering an investment opportunity, and do your due diligence. So next in our top 10 is romance scams. So fraudsters use every type of dating or social networking site available to contact their victims. Their accounts are created using photos stolen from legitimate people. Their backgrounds are normally they're normally in the army, or they're a high-ranking businessman, and they normally, what they do is they, for whatever reason, their accounts have been frozen, and they eventually ask for money. So warning signs and how to protect yourself from being a victim to a romance scam is beware of individuals quickly professing their love for you. So what these fraudsters do is they know exactly what to say to try to lure the victim in. Beware of individuals who claim to be wealthy but need to borrow money. When trying to set up an in-person meeting, always be suspicious if they always provide you with reasons to cancel. If you do proceed, meet in a public place with someone else around there. Never send intimate photos or video of yourself as they may be used to blackmail you. Never send or accept money under any circumstances. You may unknowingly be participating in money laundering, which is a criminal offense. So in some cases, the victims will receive a fraudulent check where the fraudster asks the victim to deposit a check and send the funds elsewhere because they don't have access to a bank account. Another important note here is with what we're seeing with romance scams is that a lot of these scams are combining investment scams with romance scams. So it does start off, the scam will start off as a romance scam, but down the line, the scammer will offer the victim an investment opportunity, and the victim a lot of times may end up falling into an investment scam on top of the romance scam. So just always be careful. There's nothing wrong with going on these dating sites, but as long as you stick by the rule of not sending money to somebody you've never met, you'll be protected. So next on the list is identity theft and identity fraud. Identity theft occurs when a victim's personal information has been stolen or compromised, or they've been part of a breach. Identity fraud occurs when that information is used by the fraudsters to open credit card accounts, cell phone accounts, or applying for CERB benefits or applying for employment insurance. So it's important to always, if you know that you've been a victim of identity theft and you've lost personal information, it's always important to follow the steps to protect yourself. So those steps are gather the information you need, contact the two major credit bureaus, which are Equifax and TransUnion, report the incident to your local police, report the incident to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, either online or at our toll-free number at 888-495-8501. Step 5, review your financial statements and notify the affected agency if you notice any suspicious activity. Notify your financial institution and credit card companies. If you suspect that your mail has been redirected, contact Canada Post. And notify the federal identity document issuing agencies for a couple of reasons. The CRA, because they are issuing the COVID-19 benefits, and Service Canada, because we are getting a lot of reports where suspects are gaining access to these accounts and applying for employment insurance with the victim's personal information. So on to our next scam type, extortion. Extortion happens when someone unlawfully obtains money, property, or services from a person, entity, or institution through coercion. The top reported extortion scam, as I touched on that a little earlier, is that common phone call I'm sure most of us have received at one point, claiming to be the CRA, Service Canada, or the Canada Border Services Agency. It more recently tells you that your social insurance number has been suspended, and if you don't dial 1, you could be arrested due to the fraudulent activity on your social insurance number. Or they may claim that there has been a suspicious package intercepted at the border, and if you don't dial 1 to speak with a CBSA agent, you're risking there could be a warrant out for your arrest. So just, the number one rule to live by here is that if you don't recognize a phone number, if you're not expecting a phone call, don't even answer the call at all. A lot of times what we see is that simply by answering a phone call with these automated calls, it could increase the number of phone calls you get. So it's always best to just avoid that the phone call altogether. Okay, so on to phishing and smishing. So I kind of touched on this as well. Traditional phishing emails and Smishing text messages are techniques designed to trick the victim into thinking they're dealing with a reputable company, whether it's your financial institution, service provider, or government agency. They ask you to click on a link for various reasons, such as updating your account information, unlocking your account, or accepting a refund. A most recent example of a phishing message going around right now, is there's one circulating claiming to be from Service Ontario, and it claims that you have a refund of $120, and they ask you to answer Y for yes or N for no. So if you do answer Y, what happens is you'll get that fraudulent link, and it claims that you have to click on that link to be able to accept the refund. A lot of these links contain malware that can infect your device, or they're looking to gain your personal information, and it might look like a legitimate e-transfer page that asks you for your debit card number and password. And obviously, if you provide that information, you're giving them access to your personal bank account. So always be careful when you're getting a message. If you're not sure, take a step back, ask somebody you know, a loved one or a friend, what they think about the message. But general rule to live by is never click on a link. Whether even if it looks legitimate, don't click on a link. And we mentioned if they claim to be your financial institution, you're always better off to log in to your bank account directly through the application or the website. Or if they're claiming to be a service provider, well, use Netflix as an example. Go to your Netflix account or your Netflix app and log in there directly and see if there's any kind of payment issue. And if you always follow that rule, you'll always be sure to never fall victim to a phishing scam. So next on the list is merchandise. And I think this was mentioned earlier. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So many of these ads on Facebook and social media, offer this great deal. And I mean, especially now due to the alarming rate of inflation, we're all looking to save a few bucks, right? But at the same time, you always want to make sure that you're saving that money you have, and you're not just throwing it away to scammers as well. So it goes back to doing your research. Think before you click on that ad. If they're a lot of times they may be claiming to be a reputable company, they could copy Nike, they could copy any company and make you think that that's who they are. That would be counterfeit merchandise. We see a lot of puppy scams where there could be an ad for a free puppy on social media. What they do is that they tell you, yeah, it's for free, but then down the line they try to make you pay for shipping costs. They tell you that you have to pay for a special crate for transportation. In the end, it's a scam. So again, always look into everything, do your research with that as well. And you always want to make sure to do that research is the most important thing I keep repeating that, but it's so important with any type of scam to do your research. Don't send money to somebody you've never met. Okay, so on to spear phishing. Spear phishing is generally more for businesses. We do see, spear phishing affecting some individuals, but spear phishing is actually one of the most common and most dangerous attack methods currently used to conduct fraud. What the fraudsters usually do is they either find a way to infiltrate the business's networks and get victims to send a wire transfer to an alternate bank account for various reasons. They might say that they're one of their suppliers and they change your bank account information and they need a large wire transfer to be sent to an alternate bank account. In some cases, they have all the details of the actual invoice amount. And in some cases, that's due to maybe an employee clicking on a phishing email, which gave these fraudsters access to the network. So yeah, if you get an email at your place of work, or whatever the case may be, asking you to click on a link, don't do it, because you may be giving these criminals access to your devices, or in a business's case, to the networks. Another variation of spear phishing is payroll receives an email claiming to be from an employee looking to update their bank account information. In this case here, it may not even be the case where the fraudsters accessed the networks. In some cases, they're able to get that information, the employee's name, on LinkedIn, and the payroll's email address through another, on the website, or whatever the case may be. Or, a lot of times new employees will post where they work on Facebook. So it's very easy for these fraudsters to get that information. If they're able to get the name of the employee and payroll's email address, it can easily be done. And that's where they ask for that direct deposit information to get changed, so they can get the employee's paycheck, essentially. So there are so many different variations of spear phishing, and that's defined as a targeted attack, as mentioned. So they're going in for a specific victim, and that's why it's called spear phishing. So next on the list is vendor fraud. So vendor fraud is consumers and businesses selling merchandise or offering their services online. They're at risk of receiving fraudulent payments. In many cases, victims will receive an overpayment with instructions to forward the difference to a third party. The most common variation of vendor fraud that we're seeing is, a normal person trying to sell an item on Facebook or on Kijiji, or whatever the case may be, and they get an email from the fraudster saying, hey, yeah, I want to buy the item, and I'm going to send you an e-transfer. So, but there's to be able to do it properly, I'm going to require a tracking number from you, and once I get the tracking number, you'll get the funds. So the fraudulent e-transfer email is sent out advising of this, and it asks for the tracking number, and it says once you put the tracking number in, you'll receive the funds. So the victim goes out and ships the item they had for sale out to the address provided. They return home, put that tracking number in, only to find out that it was a fraudulent email and they're not actually receiving the funds. So this goes back to, if you're always take your time when you're doing an online transaction, hover over that email address. If they're claiming to be Interac, always look for the actual email address that email is coming from. Another variation is the suspect may send you a check, an overpayment check, and ask you to send the difference to a supposed shipping company, which is actually the fraudster as well. So the victim will deposit the check for the payment, send the difference to the shipping company, and in some cases even ship the item out. And then 5 days later, the check will come back as fraudulent, and the victim realizes that they've lost the money. They're responsible for the funds that they've sent out to that supposed shipping company, and they have lost the item that they shipped out. So just always be sure, especially with checks, really get it verified by your bank and wait those 5 to 10 business days to make sure that the check is legitimate. Okay, so service scams. These frauds often involve offer for telecommunications, internet, finance, medical, and energy services. In addition, extended warranties, Insurance and sales services may also fall under this category. Tech support scams, which they target victims in with different methods of communication. So the main one is a phone call. They'll call you and tell you that your device is infected, and they require access to your computer to be able to resolve or to clean that out. Another common way is we're seeing emails go out now saying that your your subscription is going to be canceled, or that your device is infected. They require you to call a phone number immediately, and they eventually ask you to get into your computer to resolve any kind of issue like that as well. So just always be vigilant. Never, if you're looking for tech support, you're always better off to go to a local business or back to the place where you bought your computer or device and get your support from them. Lower interest rate, we still are seeing some reports of this come in. And another example of service fraud is home repairs and products. So I kind of touched on that earlier as well, where, it could be duct cleaning, or it could be a company offering a better product for your home, getting you to sign a contract. And so yeah, those are just some variation of service scams. So moving on to job scams, the most common fraudulent job advertisements are for personal assistant or mystery shopper, financial agent or debt collector, and car wrapping. So what we're seeing the most with job scams is in the personal assistant or financial agent, in that case, they make it look very legitimate, especially more so now with more people looking to work online. That we're seeing an increase in job scams. What they do is they get you to sign a contract, and down the road they tell you, when it comes time to tell you what the responsibilities are for the job, they will tell you that you have to accept payments from clients and take those payments and deposit them into a Bitcoin machine. So what they do is, they make you think that you're accepting payments from clients, which are a lot of times e-transfers from other victims. So without the victim knowingly receiving fraudulent payments and taking those payments and putting them into a Bitcoin machine, they don't realize that they're actually money laundering for the scammers. So the scammer might be running some type of other scam in the background and then using you as a middle person to deposit those funds, those fraudulent e-transfers, which are either getting stolen from the other victims' bank accounts, or being used from other scams. And they're using you to transfer the funds to them by Bitcoin. So always do your research with this as well. Be mindful of where you post your resume. Beware of unsolicited text messages offering employment. Never use your personal bank account to accept payment from strangers. Always remember, the legitimate employer will never send you money and ask you to forward or return a portion of it. So in 2021, just to give you an example of the severity of fraud, and in Canada and actually all over the world, but at the CAFC, we received over 460,000 calls during hours of operation, and over 142,000 online reports. As mentioned earlier, over 379 million in overall reported losses in 2021. So there was actually a report done by McMaster University that says that it's estimated that less than 5% of fraud is reported to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So if we look back at that staggering number of 379 million, that in reality, the loss is probably in the billions, right? So for various reasons. And I think Chris touched on this as well. It could be because they feel ashamed or embarrassed. They might think that I'm not reporting to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. They can't do anything anyway. They may not know that the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre exists. They're blaming themselves for their losses. That goes back to being ashamed. And sometimes they won't report the incident as mentioned unless they are guaranteed restitution. So a few different factors, but very scary and alarming number. Kind of shows the importance of doing these types of presentations to try to get that education factor out, because the number one tool to fight fraud is education. So what to do if you're a victim? I won't go through all of the steps just because these steps are listed on our website as well at antifraudcenter.ca. And I think I touched on these steps a little bit earlier as well, but it's always important, if you have been a victim of identity theft and you want to prevent yourself from being a victim of identity fraud, to follow these steps and be sure that you're taking every necessary step to protect yourself should you be a victim. So as mentioned, how to report fraud. Our toll-free number is 1-888-495-8501. And alternatively, you can file online as well on our fraud reporting system at www.antifraudcenter.ca. Important to note, just because I know from experience, a lot of consumers get a little bit confused when they get to our website. They don't know what a GC key is, or they're not sure what it is. So a GC key, if you don't have one, it's just a matter of registering for a username and password. Once you create that username and password, you can reuse it to log in and report anything, from a phishing message to a phone call. But basically, that's what a GC key is. It's a fancy name for a username and password. Or another option is using a sign-in partner by using your bank account credentials. Both methods allow you to communicate securely with the government of Canada. So yeah, and I guess that wraps up my presentation.
Thank you so much, Jeff. There seems to be so many scams out there to be aware of and try to educate ourselves. So thank you for sharing all that information with us. Sometimes it's like, okay, which one's next? That's coming our way. So thank you both for sharing. We do have a few questions. Laura, I'm not sure if I know you've been checking the chat box and the question box. Is there any sort of themes that have come up with people's inquiries?
Absolutely. So we're getting some general questions around, there's interest in how to volunteer for the senior support unit. So that would be for Jeff.
Unfortunately, I don't have the information on that on hand, but I can definitely, I could follow up with that. But I'm not too sure exactly how that process works, but I can definitely follow up and try to relay that information.
Okay, that actually came from an anonymous attendee today. So what I'll do is I will direct anyone with these particular questions to call your 1-800 number.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Yep.
And an individual wanted you to repeat the proper number as far as losses in regards to identity theft or fraud.
I think the slide was, you said something that should have been 30,000, or I can't remember the exact number. It was the first slide I think you showed on the number of reports and people who were victims of scams.
Well, we'll give Jeff a moment to find that actual number. And here's a general question for Jeff and Chris is, given that seniors are vulnerable to scams and crime due to isolation, loneliness, do you send out mass mailings on this topic info about senior crime, frauds awareness, how to approach a neighbor to ask about these things. Do you insert or go through MPPs or MPs through their letters to their constituents?
While
So
Jeff
just,
is-
I'm gonna go back. Oh, go ahead, Chris. That's okay.
I was going to say, while Jeff is searching for his data, I'll jump in. That's a great suggestion. We don't normally send out information through our MPs. I know in the past we might have been approached by various MPs where they've asked for information where they want us to share the resources that we have available, and we have done that. All our information that's available is on our website, GetSmarterBotMoney.ca, so anyone can link to any of the data, any of the resources posted. But if somebody wants to actually get other information from us, they should certainly reach out, and we'd be more than happy to share and help. But great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, so same thing with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. As far as I know, we don't reach out to MPs, but we do have a lot of MPs on our list that we share information with. But the most common way that we're sharing the fraud prevention messaging now is on social media and our website. That's where you'll get the most up-to-date information. But I do realize that not everybody is online all the time, and not everybody has social media. So definitely something that we'll consider. It's a great suggestion. And back to the stats question, there were 30,849 victims to identity fraud in 2021.
Thank you for that, Jeff. And
Yep.
One last question for both Chris and Jeff is, if anyone is interested in a specific education session, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can email me, calum@osc.on.ca, and I can put that in the chat box.
Wonderful. If maybe both of you could just put your contact info in the chat box. And that concludes all of the questions for today.
Great, I'm just going to grab my. Sorry, I'm just going to bring up my screen. Sorry about that, everybody. Which it didn't go to the right screen in the first place. Sorry. I apologize. I did want to just to bring to everyone's attention the fact that we do have a lot of resources around fraud prevention on our website that you can access the EAPON.ca. So you can find brochures and fact sheets on frauds and scams and financial abuse. We have a resource inventory. We also have some tools on, it's called Safe and Sound. So you can, there's some tip sheets around frauds and scams that you can download. All of these are available under our fact sheets. So and available in various languages, as you see here. Just want to let people know that we are hosting a provincial conference at the end of March around amplifying our collective voices on the rights don't get old. I encourage you to attend. It's free. You can sign up today. We're pleased to have Ashton Applewhite as our keynote opening speaker. For those who may not know her, she's kind of well known for her TED Talk on ageism. She's an anti-ageism activist and has wrote a book on the issue as well. So we're so pleased to have her join us. We are limited in terms of our registration. So if you're interested, please register early. We also, the following days after the conference, we will be hosting some master classes for those interested in looking at how we can reframe aging and elder abuse, and also looking at interventions and promising practices. This information will be posted on our website by the end of the week, so we'll have more details and agendas available to share for the public. Next webinar that we're hosting will be on March 24th. This is up on our website for people to register as well. We invite back Jeremy Bertrand from the Ontario Ministry of Finance, talking about the Ontario's estate administration tax. A great presentation that he just did a couple weeks ago on some of the credits for taxes for this upcoming year. And this is another one that he provides, which I think will be very relevant to many individuals, just to know what the new tax laws are, or tax credits and savings, and how to understand that. Our website, if anyone hasn't gone there recently, we have a new face and new look to our website, which makes it a little bit more easier for people to navigate information and resources. So when you go to the site, you'll see a whole new sort of rebranding look for our logo and how to find resources a little bit easier. So I encourage you to check us out there. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please reach out to us. We're more than glad to have your feedback on things that we can do to improve as we move forward in terms of providing information and support for seniors and those in the community working with seniors. Lastly, we would appreciate your feedback for the evaluation. I will be sending out a follow-up link for those who may not have time to finish it right now. Your feedback is important, so we'd appreciate you taking a couple minutes to do that. And you can always contact our office, the main office, or I can be contacted by email. And I did put my phone number in there, but you can contact the main office and you can get a hold of us if you have any further research or any further questions about today's session or anything around elder abuse, or we want a training session. We'd be more than pleased to do that as well. So thank you again to our speakers, both Chris and Jeff, and our ASL interpreters for joining us, and for all of you for participating today. I appreciate your ongoing support. I know we have many people who join our webinars. Again, this session will be posted on the website within the next day or so. Thank you again, and have a good week.